I shaved my babies. This your girl, Empress Queen Goddess. The Georgia Peach back at you one more again. I don't want to handle my little business. So I figured I would throw a little Neville Goddard down real quick. This is the Ultimate Neville Goddard Collection. I hold no copyright claims to this content. This is solely for entertainment purposes, my love. Under the Fair Use Act of 1976, 107 for educational purposes. Disclaimer. This is Your Faith is Your Fortune. The 12 Disciples.
Chapter 18. The 12 Disciples. And when he had called unto him his 12 disciples, he gave them power against unclean spirits, to cast them out, and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. Matthew 10:1. The 12 disciples represent the 12 qualities of mind which can be controlled and disciplined by man. If disciplined, they will at all times obey the command of the one who has disciplined them. These 12 qualities in man are potentials of every mind. Undisciplined, their actions resemble more the actions of a mob than they do a trained and disciplined army. All the storms and confusions that engulf man can be traced directly to these 12 ill-related characteristics of the human mind in its present slumbering state. Until they are awakened and disciplined, they will permit every rumor and sensuous emotion to move them. When these 12 are disciplined and brought under control, the one who accomplishes this control will say to them, "Hereafter I call you not slaves, but friends." John 15:15. He knows that from that moment on, each acquired, disciplined attribute of mind will befriend and protect him. The names of the 12 qualities reveal their natures. These names are not given to them until they are called to discipleship. They are Simon, who was later surnamed Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Thomas, Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, Thaddeus, Simon the Canaanite, and Judas. Matthew 10. The first quality to be called and disciplined is Simon, or the attribute of hearing. This faculty, when lifted to the level of a disciple, permits only such impressions to reach consciousness as those which his hearing has commanded him to let enter. No matter what the wisdom of man might suggest, or the evidence of his senses convey, if such suggestions and ideas are not in keeping with that which he hears, he remains unmoved. This one has been instructed by his Lord and made to understand that every suggestion he permits to pass his gate will, on reaching his Lord and Master, his consciousness, leave its impression there, which impression must in time become an expression. The instruction to Simon is that he should permit only dignified and honorable visitors or impressions to enter the house, consciousness, of his Lord. No mistake can be covered up or hidden from his master, for every expression of life tells his Lord whom he consciously or unconsciously entertained. When Simon, by his works, proves himself to be a true and faithful disciple, then he receives the surname of Peter, or the Rock, the unmoved disciple, the one who cannot be bribed or coerced by any visitor. He is called by his Lord Simon Peter, the one who faithfully hears the commands of his Lord, and besides which commands he hears not. It is this Simon Peter who discovers the I Am to be Christ, and for his discovery is given the keys to heaven, and is made the foundation stone upon which the temple of God rests. Buildings must have firm foundations, and only the disciplined hearing can, on learning that the I Am is Christ, remain firm and unmoved in the knowledge that I am Christ, and beside me there is no Savior. The second quality to be called to discipleship is Andrew, or courage. As the first quality, faith in oneself, is developed, it automatically calls into being its brother, courage. Faith in oneself, which asks no man's help, but quietly and alone appropriates the consciousness of the quality desired, and in spite of reason or evidence of the senses to the contrary, continues faithfully, patiently waiting in the knowledge that this unseen claim, if sustained, must be realized. Such faith develops a courage and strength of character that are beyond the wildest dreams of the undisciplined man, whose faith is in things seen. The faith of the undisciplined man cannot really be called faith. For if the armies, medicines, or wisdom of man, in which his faith is placed, be taken from him, his faith and courage go with it. But from the disciplined one, the whole world could be taken, and yet he would remain faithful in the knowledge that the state of consciousness in which he abides must in due season embody itself. This courage is Peter's brother, Andrew the disciple, who knows what it is to dare, to do, and to be silent. The next two, the third and fourth, who are called, are also related. These are the brothers James and John. James the just, the righteous judge, and his brother John the beloved. Justice, to be wise, must be administered with love, ever turning the other cheek, and at all times returning good for evil, love for hate, nonviolence for violence. The disciple James, symbol of a disciplined judgment, must, when raised to the high office of a supreme judge, be blindfolded, that he may not be influenced by the flesh, nor judge after the appearances of being. Disciplined judgment is administered by the one who is not influenced by appearances. The one who has called these brothers to discipleship continues faithful to his command to hear only that which he has been commanded to hear, namely, the good. The man who has this quality of his mind disciplined is incapable of hearing and accepting as true anything, either of himself or another, which does not on the hearing fill his heart with love. These two disciples, or aspects of the mind, are one and inseparable when awakened. Such a disciplined one forgives all men for being that which they are. He knows, as a wise judge, that every man perfectly expresses that which he is, conscious of being. He knows that upon the changeless foundation of consciousness, all manifestation rests, that changes of expression can be brought about only through changes of consciousness. With neither condemnation nor criticism, these disciplined qualities of the mind permit everyone to be that which he is. However, although allowing this perfect freedom of choice to all, they are nevertheless ever watchful to see that they themselves prophesy and do, both for others and themselves, only such things which, when expressed, glorify, dignify, and give joy to the expressor. The fifth quality called to discipleship is Philip. This one asks to be shown the Father. The awakened man knows that the Father is the state of consciousness in which man dwells, and that this state, or Father, can only be seen as it is expressed. He knows himself to be the perfect likeness or image of that consciousness with which he is identified. So he declares, "No man has at any time seen my Father, but I, the Son, who dwelleth in his bosom, have revealed him." John 1:18. Therefore, when you see me, the Son, you see my Father. For I come to bear witness of my Father. John 14:7. I and my Father, consciousness and its expression, God and man, are one. This aspect of the mind, when disciplined, persists until ideas, ambitions, and desires become embodied realities. This is the quality which states, "Yet in my flesh I shall see God." Job 19:26. It knows how to make the word flesh. John 1:14. How to give form to the formless. The sixth disciple is called Bartholomew. This quality is the imaginative faculty, which quality of the mind, when once awake, distinguishes one from the masses. An awakened imagination places the one so awakened head and shoulders above the average man, giving him the appearance of a beacon of light in a world of darkness. No quality so separates man from man as does the disciplined imagination. This is the separation of the wheat from the chaff. Those who have given most to society are our artists, scientists, inventors, and others with vivid imaginations. Should a survey be made to determine the reason why so many seemingly educated men and women fail in their after-college years, or should it be made to determine the reason for the different earning powers of the masses, there would be no doubt that imagination played the important part. Such a survey would show that it is imagination which makes one a leader, while the lack of it makes one a follower. Instead of developing the imagination of man, our educational system oftentimes stifles it by attempting to put into the mind of man the
Hey,
wisdom
Tina,
he
what's up,
seeks.
love?
It forces him to memorize a number of textbooks, which all too soon are disproved by later textbooks. Education is not accomplished by putting something into man. Its purpose is to draw out of man the wisdom which is latent within him. May the reader call Bartholomew to discipleship, for only
Okay.
as this quality is raised to discipleship will you have the capacity to conceive ideas that will lift you beyond the limitations of man. The seventh is called Thomas. This disciplined quality doubts or denies every rumor and suggestion that are not in harmony with that which Simon Peter has been commanded to let enter. The man who is conscious of being healthy, not because of inherited health, diets, or climate, but because he is awakened and knows the state of consciousness in which he lives, will, in spite of the
Let me
conditions of
write
the
it down
world,
because I was
continue to express health.
in my YouTube
He could
studio trying
hear
to do
through the
some work.
press, radio, and wise men of the world that a plague was sweeping the earth, yet he would remain unmoved and unimpressed. Thomas, the doubter, when disciplined, would deny that sickness or anything else which was not in sympathy with the consciousness to which he belonged had any power to affect him. This quality of denial, when disciplined, protects man from receiving impressions that are not in harmony with his nature. He adopts an attitude of total indifference to all suggestions that are foreign to that which he desires to express. Disciplined denial is not a fight or a struggle, but total indifference. Matthew, the eighth, is the gift of God. This quality of the mind reveals man's desires as the gifts of God. The man who has called this discipleship into being knows that every desire of his heart is a gift from heaven, and that it contains both the power and the plan of its self-expression.
Okay, you can go ahead and
Such a man
remove it.
never questions the manner of its expression. He knows that the plan of expression is never revealed to man, for God's ways are past finding out. Romans 11:33. He fully accepts his desires as gifts already received, and goes his way in peace, confident that they shall appear. The ninth disciple is called James, the son of Alphaeus. This is the quality of discernment. A clear and ordered mind is the voice which calls this disciple into being. This faculty perceives that which is not revealed to the eye of man. This disciple judges not from appearances, for it has the capacity to function in the realm of causes, and so is never misled by appearances. Clairvoyance is the faculty which is awakened when this quality is developed and disciplined. Not the clairvoyance of the mediumistic seance room, but the true clairvoyance or clear seeing of the mystic. That is, this aspect of the mind has the capacity to interpret that which is
The
seen.
moment I'm trying to do
Discernment, or
something
the
and you messing
capacity
with
to
me.
diagnose, is the quality of James, the son of Alphaeus. Thaddeus, the 10th, is the disciple of praise, a quality in which the undisciplined man is woefully lacking. When this quality of praise and thanksgiving is awake within man, he walks with the words, "Thank you, Father," ever on his lips. He knows that his thanks for things not seen opens the windows of heaven and permits gifts beyond his capacity to receive to be poured upon him. The man who is not thankful for things received is not likely to be the recipient of many gifts from the same source. Until this quality of the mind is disciplined, man will not see the desert blossom as the rose. Praise and thanksgiving are to the invisible gifts of God, one's desires, what rain and sun are to the unseen seeds in the bosom of the earth. The 11th quality is called Simon of Canaan. A good key
What's up,
phrase
Red
for this
Squid? Where you been
disciple
at,
is
brother?
hearing good news. Simon of Canaan, or Simon
Peace
from
and
the land
love.
of milk and honey, when called to discipleship, is proof that the one who calls this faculty into being has become conscious of the abundant life. He can say with the psalmist David, "Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies.
Okay.
Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over." Psalm 23:5. This disciplined aspect of the mind is incapable of hearing anything other than good news, and so is well qualified to preach the gospel, or good spell. The 12th and last of the disciplined qualities of mind is called Judas. When this quality is awake, man knows that he must die to that which he is, before he can become that which he desires to be. So it is said of this disciple that he committed suicide, which is the mystic's way of telling the initiated that Judas is the disciplined aspect of detachment. This one knows that his I am, or consciousness, is his savior, so he lets all other saviors go. This quality, when disciplined, gives one the strength to let go. The man who has called Judas into his being has learned how to take his attention away from the problems or limitations, and to place it upon that which is the solution or savior. Except ye be born again, you cannot anywise enter the kingdom of heaven. John 3:3.
Well.
No greater love hath man than this, that he give his life for a friend. John 15:13. When man realizes that the quality desired, if realized, would save and befriend him, he willingly gives up his life, his present conception of himself, for his friend, by detaching his consciousness from that which he is conscious of being, and assuming the consciousness of that which he desires to be. Judas, the one whom the world in its ignorance has blackened, will, when man awakes from his undisciplined state, be placed on high, for God is love, and no greater love hath a man than this, that he lay down his life for a friend. Until man lets go of that which he is now conscious of being, he will not become that which he desires to be, and Judas is the one who accomplishes this through suicide or detachment.
Wow.
These are the 12 qualities
That's
which
deep.
were given to man in the foundation of the world. Man's duty is to raise them to the level of discipleship. When this is accomplished, man will say, "I have finished the work which thou gavest me to do. I have glorified thee on earth, and now, O Father, glorify thou me with thine own self, with the glory which I had with thee before the world was." John 17:4 and 5. Chapter 20. The Breath of Life. Then the Lord God formed man of dust from the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being. Genesis 2:7. And he, Elisha, went up, and lay upon the child, and put his mouth upon his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands, and stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child waxed warm. 2 Kings 4:34. Did the prophet Elisha really restore to life the dead child of the widow? This story, along with all the other stories of the Bible, is a psychological drama which takes place in the consciousness of man. The widow symbolizes every man and woman in the world. The dead child represents the frustrated desires and ambitions of man, while the prophet Elisha symbolizes the God power within man, or man's awareness of being. The story tells us that the prophet took the dead child from the widow's bosom and carried him into an upper room. As he entered this upper room, he closed the door behind them. Placing the child upon a bed, he breathed life into him. Returning to the mother, he gave her the child and said, "Woman, thy son liveth." 1 Kings 17:23 and 2 Kings 4:36. Man's desires can be symbolized as the dead child. The mere fact that he desires is proof positive that the thing desired is not yet a living reality in his world. He tries in every conceivable way to nurse this desire into reality, to make it live, but finds in the end that all attempts are fruitless. Most men are not aware of the existence of the infinite power within themselves. They remain indefinitely with a dead child in their arms, not realizing that the desire is the positive indication of limitless capacities for its fulfillment. Let man once recognize that his consciousness is a prophet who breathes life into all that he is conscious of being, and he will close the door of his senses against his problem and fix his attention solely on that which he desires, knowing that by doing so, his desires are certain to be realized. He will discover recognition to be the breath of life, for he will perceive, as he consciously claims himself to be now expressing or possessing all he desires to be or have, that he is breathing the breath of life into his desire. The quality claimed for the desire, in a way unknown to him, will begin to move and become a living reality in his world. Yes, the prophet Elisha lives forever as man's limitless consciousness of being, the widow as his limited conscious of being, and the child as that which he desires to be. Chapter 21, Daniel in the Lion's Den. Thy God whom thou servest continually, he will deliver thee. Daniel 6:16. The story of Daniel is the story of every man. It is recorded that Daniel, while locked in the lion's den, turned his back upon the hungry beasts, and with his vision turned toward the light coming from above, he prayed to the one and only God. The lions, who were purposefully starved for the feast, remained powerless to hurt the prophet. Daniel's faith in God was so great that it finally brought about his freedom and his appointment to a high office in the government of his country. Daniel 6:13-28. This story was written for you to instruct you in the art of freeing yourself from any problem or prison in the world. Most of us, on finding ourselves in the lion's den, would be concerned only with the lions. We would not be thinking of any other problem in the whole wide world but that of lions. Yet we are told that Daniel turned his back upon them and turned toward the light that was God. If we could follow the example of Daniel while threatened with any dire disaster such as lions, poverty, or sickness, if like Daniel we could remove our attention to the light that is God, our solutions would be similarly simple. For example, if you were imprisoned, no man would need tell you that what you should desire is freedom. Freedom, or rather the desire to be free, would be automatic. The same would be true if you found yourself sick or in debt or in any other predicament. Lions represent seemingly insoluble situations of a threatening nature. Every problem automatically produces its solution in the form of a desire to be free from the problem. Therefore, turn your back upon the problem and focus your attention upon the desired solution by already freeing yourself to be that which you desire. Continue in this belief, and you will find that your prison will disappear as you begin to express that which you have become conscious of being. I have seen people, apparently hopelessly in debt, apply this principle, and in but a very short time, debts that were mountainous were removed. I have also seen those whom doctors had given up as incurable apply this principle, and in an incredibly short time their so-called incurable disease vanished and left no scar. Look upon your desires as the spoken words of God, and every word of prophecy of that which you are capable of being. Do not question whether you are worthy or unworthy to realize these desires. Accept them as they come to you. Give thanks for them as though they were gifts. Feel happy and grateful for having received such wonderful gifts. Then go your way in peace. Such simple acceptance of your desires is like the dropping of fertile seed into an ever-prepared soil. When you drop your desire in consciousness as a seed, confident that it shall appear in its full-blown potential, you have done all that is expected of you. To be worried or concerned about the manner of their unfoldment is to hold these fertile seeds in a mental grasp, and therefore to prevent them from really maturing to full harvest. Don't be anxious or concerned as to results. Results will follow just as sure as day follows night. Have faith in this planting until the evidence is manifest to you that it is so. Your confidence in this procedure will pay great rewards. You wait but a little while in the consciousness of being the thing desired. Then suddenly, when you least expect it, the thing felt becomes your expression. Life is no respecter of persons, Acts 10:34, and destroys nothing. It continues to keep alive that which man is conscious of being. Things will disappear only as man changes his consciousness. Deny it if you will, it still remains a fact that consciousness is the only reality, and things but mirror that which you are conscious of being. The heavenly state you seek will be found only in consciousness, for the kingdom of heaven is within you. Your consciousness is the only living reality, the eternal head of creation.
Oh yeah.
That which you are conscious of being is the temporal body that you wear.
That's why I don't ever worry.
To turn your attention from that which you are aware of being is to decapitate that body. But just as a chicken or snake continues to jump and throb for a while after its head has been removed, likewise qualities and conditions appear to live for a while after your attention has been taken away from them. Man, not knowing this law of consciousness, constantly gives thought to his previous habitual conditions, and, through being attentive to them, places upon these dead bodies the eternal head of creation. Thereby he reanimates and resurrects them. You must leave these dead bodies alone. Let the dead bury their dead. Matthew 8:22. Man, having put his hand to the plow, that is, after assuming the consciousness of the quality desired, by looking back can only defeat his fitness for the kingdom of heaven. As the will of heaven is ever done on earth, you are today in the heaven that you have established within yourself. For here on this very earth, your heaven.
Hold on a second. See what that was at. I'm kind of jumping through broadcasting certain parts. This one here I want to broadcast. I just saw it. Where is it here? Chapter 3, Building the Secret. I'm here, y'all. I'm just trying to. The power of awareness. I'm trying to get to Feeling the Secret. Okay, I got to go back up some. Oh, I got to go back. This book is in two parts, and I'm trying to find the right part.
Heaven reveals itself. The kingdom of heaven really is at hand. Now is the accepted time. So create a new heaven, enter into a new state of consciousness, and a new earth will appear.
Okay, the art of believing.
Chapter 1, The Law of Reversibility. Pray for my soul.
Oh, reversibility.
More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of.
That's not
Chapter 2,
That's it.
Dual Nature of Consciousness.
That's it.
A clear concept of the dual nature of man's consciousness must be the basis of all true prayer. Consciousness includes a subconscious as well as a conscious part. The infinitely greater part of consciousness lies below the sphere of objective consciousness.
I told
The
you how to do it once
subconscious
before.
is the most
But I'm
important
trying to listen
part
to this,
of
though.
consciousness.
I get what you're on
It
about how
is
to
the
do that.
cause of
Right now, I got some
voluntary
things on
action.
my mind.
The subconscious is what a man is. The conscious is what a man knows. I and my Father are one, but my Father is greater than I.
That's why I'm just
The
sitting back
conscious and
listening.
subconscious are one, but the subconscious is greater than the conscious. I of myself can do nothing. The Father within me, he doeth the work. I, objective consciousness, of myself can do nothing. The Father, the subconscious, he doeth the work. The subconscious is that in which everything is known, in which everything is possible, to which everything goes, from which everything comes, which belongs to all, to which all have access. What we are conscious of is constructed out of what we are not conscious of. Not only do our subconscious assumptions influence our behavior, but they also fashion the pattern of our objective experience. They alone have the power to say, "Let us make man," objective manifestations, in our image, after our likeness. The whole of creation is asleep within the deep of man, and is awakened to objective existence by his subconscious assumptions. Within that blankness we call sleep, there is a consciousness in unsleeping vigilance, and while the body sleeps, this unsleeping being releases from the treasure house of eternity the subconscious assumptions of man. Prayer is the key which unlocks the infinite storehouse. Prove me now herewith, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open you the windows of heaven, and pour you out a blessing that there shall not be room enough to receive it. Prayer modifies or completely changes our subconscious assumptions, and a change of assumption is a change of expression. The conscious mind reasons inductively from observation, experience, and education. It therefore finds it difficult to believe what the five senses and inductive reason deny. The subconscious reasons deductively, and is never concerned with the truth or falsity of the premise, but proceeds on the assumption of the correctness of the premise, and objectifies results which are consistent with that premise. This distinction must be clearly seen by all who would master the art of praying. No true grasp of the science of prayer can really be obtained until the laws governing the dual nature of consciousness are understood, and the importance of the subconscious realized. Prayer, the art of believing what is denied by the senses, deals almost entirely with the subconscious. Through prayer, the subconscious is suggested into acceptance of the wish fulfilled, and, reasoning deductively, logically unfolds it to its legitimate end. Far greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The subjective mind is the diffused consciousness that animates the world. It is the spirit that giveth life. In all substance is a single soul, subjective mind. Through all creation runs this one unbroken subjective mind. Thought and feeling fused into beliefs impress modifications upon it, charge it with a mission, which mission it faithfully executes. The conscious mind originates premises. The subjective mind unfolds them to their logical ends. Were the subjective mind not so limited in its initiative power of reasoning, objective man could not be held responsible for his actions in the world. Man transmits ideas to the subconscious through his feelings. The subconscious transmits ideas from mind to mind through telepathy. Your unexpressed convictions of others are transmitted to them without their conscious knowledge or consent, and if subconsciously accepted by them, will influence their behavior. The only ideas they subconsciously reject are your ideas of them which they could not wish to be true of anyone. Whatever they could wish for others can be believed of them, and by the law of belief which governs subjective reasoning, they are compelled to subjectively accept and therefore objectively express accordingly. The subjective mind is completely controlled by suggestion. Ideas are best suggested when the objective mind is partly subjective, that is, when the objective senses are diminished or held in abeyance. This partly subjective state can best be described as a controlled reverie, wherein the mind is passive but capable of functioning with absorption. It is a concentration of attention. There must be no conflict in your mind when you are praying. Turn from what is to what ought to be. Assume the mood of the fulfilled desire, and by the universal law of reversibility, you will realize your desire. Chapter 3: Imagination and Faith. Prayers are not successfully made unless there is a rapport between the conscious and subconscious mind of the operator. This is done through imagination and faith. By the power of imagination, all men, certainly imaginative men, are forever casting forth enchantments, and all men, especially unimaginative men, are continually passing under their power. Can we ever be certain that it was not our mother, while darning our socks, who began that subtle change in our minds? If I can unintentionally cast an enchantment over persons, there is no reason to doubt that I am able to cast intentionally a far stronger enchantment. Everything that can be seen, touched, explained, argued over, is to the imaginative man nothing more than a means, for he functions, by reason of his controlled imagination, in the deep of himself, where every idea exists in itself, and not in relation to something else. In him there is no need for the restraints of reason, for the only restraint he can obey is the mysterious instinct that teaches him to eliminate all moods other than the mood of the fulfilled desire. Imagination and faith are the only faculties of the mind needed to create objective conditions. The faith required for the successful operation of the law of consciousness is a purely subjective faith, and is attainable upon the cessation of active opposition on the part of the objective mind of the operator. It depends on your ability to feel and accept as true what your objective senses deny. Neither the passivity of the subject nor his conscious agreement with your suggestion is necessary, for without his consent or knowledge, he can be given a subjective order which he must objectively express. It is a fundamental law of consciousness that by telepathy we can have immediate communion with another. To establish rapport, you call the subject mentally. Focus your attention on him and mentally shout his name just as you would to attract the attention of anyone. Imagine that he answered and mentally hear his voice. Represent him to yourself inwardly in the state you want him to obtain. Then imagine that he is telling you, in the tones of ordinary conversation, what you want to hear. Mentally answer him. Tell him of your joy in witnessing his good fortune. Having mentally heard with all the distinctness of reality that which you wanted to hear, and having thrilled to the news heard, Return to objective consciousness. Your subjective conversation must awaken what it affirmed. Thou shalt decree a thing, and it shall be established unto thee. It is not a strong will that sends the subjective word on its mission, so much as it is clear thinking and feeling the truth of the state affirmed. When belief and will are in conflict, belief invariably wins. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, saith the Lord of hosts. It is not what you want that you attract. You attract what you believe to be true. Therefore, get into the spirit of these mental conversations and give them the same degree of reality that you would a telephone conversation. If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. Therefore I say unto you, what things soever you desire, when you pray, believe that ye received them, and ye shall have them. The acceptance of the end wills the means, and the wisest reflection could not devise more effective means than those which are willed by the acceptance of the end. Mentally talk to your friends as though your desires for them were already realized. Imagination is the beginning of the growth of all forms, and faith is the substance out of which they are formed. By imagination, that which exists in latency or is asleep within the deep of consciousness is awakened and given form. The cures attributed to the influence of certain medicines, relics, and places are the effects of imagination and faith. The curative power is not in the spirit that is in them, it is in the spirit in which they are accepted. The letter killeth, but the spirit giveth life. The subjective mind is completely controlled by suggestion. So, whether the object of your faith be true or false, you will get the same results. There is nothing unsound in the theory of medicine, or in the claims of priesthood for their relics and holy places. The subjective mind of the patient accepts the suggestion of health conditioned on such states, and as soon as these conditions are met, proceeds to realize health. According to your faith be it done unto you, for all things are possible to him that believeth. Confident expectation of a state is the most potent means of bringing it about. The confident expectation of a cure does that which no medical treatment can accomplish. Failure is always due to an antagonistic autosuggestion by the patient, arising from objective doubt of the power of medicine or relic, or from doubt of the truth of the theory. Many of us, either from too little emotion or too much intellect, both of which are stumbling blocks in the way of prayer, cannot believe that which our senses deny. To force ourselves to believe will end in greater doubt. To avoid such counter-suggestions, the patient should be unaware objectively of the suggestions which are made to him. The most effective means of healing or influencing the...
I'm going to cut this short because it's almost time for class. I hope y'all enjoyed this. As always, this is your girl, Empress Queen, the Georgia Peach. Go within, my love, so you never go without. Oh yeah, like, share. I always forget to say it. If you love the content, please like, share, subscribe. Leave me a comment down in the box below. I say, as above, so below.